Behind every chart-topping hit and stadium tour, there's another side to the story. Betrayals, power struggles, and the ruthless decisions that tore bands apart. Some of the biggest names in pop and rock didn't walk away quietly. They were pushed. From the Beatles swapping out their drummer right before global fame, to Fleetwood Mac cutting ties with a founding member after decades together, these sackings were messy, shocking, and sometimes tragic. This is pop lore, and today we're counting down 10 musicians who were brutally sacked from their bands. The stories you thought you knew, and the ones you've never heard, all in one countdown.
I first met the guys when they opened my mother's club, the Casbah, way back in 1958 when they were known.
Few stories in popular music history sting quite like Pete Best's. Before the world knew Ringo Starr, it was Best who sat behind the drum kit as the Beatles took their first steps toward stardom. He had the looks, the charisma, and, by most fan accounts, the popularity to match John, Paul, and George.
I joined them August 1960. Simply because of the fact that
Gigs in Liverpool's Cavern Club or during their grueling residencies in Hamburg, Best drew screaming fans who saw him as the handsome Beatle. But in the studio things looked different. Producer George Martin was unimpressed with Best's drumming, calling it inconsistent.
in a nutshell, you know, the boys want you out and they want Ringo Starr in. Well, I was completely...
John, Paul, and George, keen to secure their big break, leaned on manager Brian Epstein to make the call. In August 1962, Best was quietly dismissed and replaced by Ringo Starr, who had been filling in on occasion.
I had mediocre success. I got a couple of records in the charts.
The timing was brutal. Within months, the Beatles exploded into global superstardom. Pete Best, meanwhile, faded into obscurity, working everyday jobs while the band he once anchored rewrote the rules of pop culture. His story has become the ultimate tale of being almost famous, and a reminder of how ruthless timing and decisions can be in the music world.
Just had to dance, started moving my feet.
Brian Jones wasn't just a member of the Rolling Stones, he was their architect. In 1962, he placed an ad that recruited Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. He named the band, managed its earliest shows, and was the group's first leader. On stage, he was a multi-instrumentalist wizard, weaving slide guitar, sitar, dulcimer, and countless textures into the Stones' early sound. But by the late 60s, Jones was unraveling. Heavy drug use, legal troubles, and erratic behavior made him increasingly unreliable in the studio. Jagger and Richards had also taken control of the band's songwriting, pushing Jones to the sidelines. In June 1969, he was asked to leave. The official line was that his lifestyle made it impossible for him to tour. Just 3 weeks later, Jones was found dead at his Sussex home, drowned in his swimming pool under circumstances that remain mysterious.
When the police knocked, those doors flew back.
His dismissal, followed so quickly by his death, became one of rock's darkest turning points. The Stones moved forward with guitarist Mick Taylor and embarked on their iconic Let It Bleed era. But for fans, Jones' firing marked the end of the band's original spirit and the beginning of a colder, harder Rolling Stones. Dave Mustaine's firing from Metallica is one of the most notorious sackings in metal history, brutal in both its timing and its aftermath. In the early 80s, Mustaine's aggressive, intricate guitar work defined Metallica's thrash sound. His riffs powered early songs like The Four Horsemen and Jump in the Fire, but his violent temper and heavy drinking made him a constant source of tension. On the eve of recording their debut album, Kill 'Em All, the band had enough. Without warning, James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, and Cliff Burton told him he was out. They handed him a bus ticket from New York back to Los Angeles. No return flight, no second chance. The brutality of that decision haunted Mustaine, who watched as Kirk Hammett replaced him, and Metallica became one of the biggest bands in history. But Mustaine refused to disappear. Fueled by anger, he formed Megadeth, a band that would rival Metallica in both speed and skill. Though he carried the bitterness for decades, publicly clashing with his former bandmates, Mustaine's Sacking ultimately gave the world two of metal's most influential bands. His story remains the ultimate example of how personal downfall can ignite creative rebirth. Syd Barrett was Pink Floyd's founding visionary. His psychedelic songwriting, whimsical lyrics, and experimental guitar tones defined the band's early sound, from the Piper at the Gates of Dawn to underground London gigs. Barrett wasn't just in the band, he was the band's identity. But by 1967 through 68, Barrett's heavy LSD use and mental health struggles began to overwhelm him. He would show up to gigs unable to play, sometimes staring blankly at the audience, sometimes detuning his guitar mid-performance. The band initially tried to work around him, even recruiting guitarist David Gilmour to support him on stage. But eventually, the others made a quiet decision. They would stop picking him up for rehearsals and shows. Barrett simply faded out, replaced by Gilmour, without a direct confrontation. The ousting was quiet, but no less brutal. Barrett was left behind as Pink Floyd became one of the biggest bands in the world. He spent most of his later life in seclusion, painting and gardening until his death in 2006. Yet his influence never disappeared. Echoes of his style lived on in Floyd's later work, most notably in Wish You Were Here, their elegy to the friend they left behind. The story of Florence Ballard is one of the most heartbreaking in Motown's history. As a founding member of the Supremes, she helped form the group's harmonies and was its emotional center. But as the 60s progressed, Diana Ross was pushed to the forefront, both musically and publicly. Manager Berry Gordy saw Ross as the future and increasingly sidelined Ballard. Tensions within the group grew. Ballard, struggling with depression and alcoholism, clashed with Ross and Gordy. By 1967, she was fired and replaced by Cindy Birdsong. Ross and the Supremes soared to international superstardom, while Ballard's solo career floundered without Motown's backing. Her descent was tragic. Financial troubles and health issues plagued her, and she died in 1976 at just 32 years old. Fans and historians often see her story as symbolic of how ruthless the music business can be. Talent alone isn't always enough, especially when power dynamics and favoritism come into play. But by 1977, as punk's media circus spun out of control, Matlock was pushed aside. The official story? He was fired for liking the Beatles too much. Manager Malcolm McLaren loved that narrative. It made the Pistols look more anarchic, more dangerous. But insiders knew the truth ran deeper. Matlock clashed constantly with Johnny Rotten, whose sneering vocals and confrontational style clashed with Matlock's more traditional musical instincts. Enter Sid Vicious. He couldn't play bass to save his life, but he looked like a punk icon. The swap was brutal, trading skill for spectacle, but it cemented the Pistols' mythology. For Matlock, being ousted meant missing the short, fiery peak of punk's most infamous band. For fans, it symbolized how image sometimes matters more than music in pop history. If Joe Strummer was the conscience of the Clash, Mick Jones was its heartbeat. His guitar work, arrangements, and songwriting shaped the band's evolution from punk firebrands to genre-bending innovators. Tracks like Train in Vain and Should I Stay or Should I Go bore his mark, but success took its toll. By 1983, tensions between Jones, Strummer, and management boiled over. Jones was labeled unreliable, late to rehearsals, wrapped up in side projects, and increasingly hard to work with. Strummer, under pressure to keep the Clash relevant, sided with management and made the call. Jones was fired from the very band he had co-created. The Clash soldiered on briefly, but without him, they lost their edge. The firing essentially signaled the beginning of the end. Jones went on to form Big Audio Dynamite, while Strummer kept searching for the fire that had once united them. For fans, Jones's ousting remains one of punk's most painful betrayals. Fleetwood Mac had always been a band of clashing personalities, but Lindsey Buckingham's 2018 dismissal showed that brutal sackings weren't confined to rock's golden era. They still happen in the modern age. Buckingham wasn't just a guitarist. He was an architect of the band's sound, co-producing Rumours and Tusk, and writing some of their most enduring hits. But his relationship with Stevie Nicks had been fraught for decades, and tension simmered just below the surface. In 2018, ahead of a major world tour, the breaking point came. Reports suggested scheduling disagreements and renewed conflict with Nicks. The result? Buckingham was fired, suddenly and publicly, after more than 40 years in and out of the band. He sued Fleetwood Mac for breach of contract and later settled, but the damage was done. For fans, it was a shocking reminder that even decades of history, success, and shared legacy don't guarantee loyalty in the world of pop music. Heart rose in the 1970s on the strength of Ann and Nancy Wilson's soaring vocals and fierce songwriting. But behind them, Roger Fisher's guitar was the backbone. His riffs on songs like Barracuda gave Heart their hard rock credibility. Yet Fisher's personal relationship with Nancy Wilson complicated everything. When the romance collapsed, so did the band's stability. Add in creative tensions and clashing egos, and the situation became untenable. In 1979, Fisher was fired, effectively cut out of the band he helped bring to the top. The ousting was painful not only for Fisher, but for fans who saw Heart as more than just a pair of sisters. It had been a band. His departure signaled a new era where the Wilsons would dominate the narrative, leaving Fisher's contributions overshadowed. For many, it remains one of classic rock's most personal and brutal splits. This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials. Headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae Vibe, Roots and Lovers. Rock Made Easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock Lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop Lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low-end, plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. So you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is one button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs, hands-free at home. Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live. Though more metal than pop, Paul Di'Anno's story deserves the top spot for sheer brutality and cultural impact. As the original frontman of Iron Maiden, his gritty, punk-infused vocals defined their first two albums, Iron Maiden and Killers. Di'Anno embodied the band's raw, street-level energy, but offstage, his lifestyle spiraled. Struggling with cocaine and alcohol, he grew unreliable, missing rehearsals and failing to deliver consistent performances. For Steve Harris and the rest of the band, Maiden's ambitions were too big to be derailed. In 1981, they made the decision to sack him. Replacing him with Bruce Dickinson was a gamble, but it paid off, catapulting Iron Maiden into global superstardom throughout the 80s. For Di'Anno, the dismissal was devastating. He continued performing with smaller projects, but never again reached the same heights. His firing stands as one of rock's defining pivots, proof that sometimes the brutal decision reshapes music history itself. The journey doesn't end here, pop lovers. Watch this next.
What if the best pop song you'll hear this week isn't new, and it isn't even famous? What if it's been sitting on a shelf in Tokyo, Stockholm, Glasgow, or Amsterdam, quietly perfect, waiting for you to press play? That's this episode. We're cracking open the secret wing of the pop museum. Bands who wrote choruses big enough for arenas but lived their lives in cult followings, midnight radio, and secondhand CDs. This isn't about guilty pleasures or snarky, so bad it's good. It's about precision, arrangements that click like clockwork, melodies that feel discovered rather than written, and lyrics that hit with the soft force only pop can manage. We'll jump from Shibuya chic to Nordic melancholy, from jangle guitars to dream haze synths. Each pick coming with a start here track, so you can fall in love fast. Ground rules: no repeats, no chart coattails, and every band earns its spot on songs alone. By the end, you'll have a playlist that slips from headphones to life's soundtrack without a seam. If pop has ever rescued your day, stick around. Hit subscribe, drop the first track that hooked you in the comments, and let's go crate digging for future favorites. The scene. Mid-80s London, where glossy synths and neon optimism ruled radio. Into that weather walked the Dream Academy. Nick Laird-Clowes, Gilbert Gabriel, and early multi-instrumentalist Kate St. John, sounding like a fog bank rolling down the Thames. Their palette, oboe and strings, treated guitars, soft focus keys, field-recorded voices, and a rhythmic undercurrent that never chases the club but still moves. David Gilmour advised and co-produced parts of the debut, and you can hear that pastoral Pink Floyd sense of space, air between instruments, melodies that open like a horizon. What they invented: a bridge between Baroque textures and pop chorus writing that feels discovered rather than assembled. The band's secret is tension with tenderness, lullaby tones singing about memory, loss, and the strange ache of big cities. On headphones, they're cinematic. On speakers, they turn a room into winter light. Start here. Life in a Northern Town, 1985. It's the song everyone knows, but listen closely. The chant is folk ancient. The drums are gated but not bombastic, and the arrangement breathes in long phrases. Then go to The Edge of Forever for the ache. Please, please, please let me get what I want. Cover for their restraint. Indian Summer for late. ADS clarity. Production tells. Bowed strings enter as color, not ballast. Guitars are often chorus kissed and panned wide. The lead vocal stays intimate, nearly whispered. Why they stayed cult. Too soft for rock radio, too literate for synth-pop rotation, they lived between formats, where timeless bands often hide. The scene, Glasgow, 1996 onward, a city that already wrote the book on indie tenderness. Tracy and Campbell leads with a voice that carries sun through cloud. Producers like Stuart Murdoch, Bell and Sebastian, and Tucker Martine helped the band bottle that glow without sanding off the Scottish bite. Camera Obscura's trick is how nostalgia and bite coexist. Phil Spector drum accents meet pedal steel size. Motown bass walks under lyrics that cut and comfort in the same line. What they perfected, the 3-minute novella. Every chorus is a turning of the page, every bridge a remembered room. They use girl group grammar, country inflections, and northern soul pulse without cosplay. It's lived in, not retro. Start here. Lloyd, I'm Ready to Be Heartbroken, 2006. That organ stab into the first line is a masterclass in instant world building. Then go to French Navy, 2009, for swagger and hand claps. Hey Lloyd, I'm Ready to Be Heartbroken live, to feel the band's stage blend, razzle dazzle rose, when you want the ache. Production tells. Tambourine and hand claps emphasize backbeats. Rhythm guitars are tight, bright, and never crowd the vocal. Arrangements lift choruses by widening the stereo image rather than spiking volume. Why they stayed cult? They write hits that feel private, which makes them perfect for headphones and long walks, and a step sideways from chart machinery. The scene, Tokyo, 1990s. 3 players, Shinji Sato, Yuzuru Kashiwabara, Kenichi Motegi, fold dubs low-end logic into gauzy pop and the bittersweet warmth of city pop. You don't listen to Fishmans so much as float inside them. Bass moves like tide water. Drums are precise but soft-edged. Guitars shimmer and delay. Sato's voice feels like someone singing from the other side of a summer door. What they built, a uniquely Japanese dream dub where time dilates. Their signature piece, Long Season, 1996, is a single 30-plus minute track that blooms and recomposes itself like weather. Motifs surfacing, dissolving, returning with new colors. It's not a suite of parts, it's one long breath. Start here. Long Season in full, no skipping. If a single is required, Baby Blue or Night Cruising shows their gentler orbit. Then go to the live document December 28, 98 Oda Katachi no Wakare to hear how they expand without losing center. Shibuya K in the 1990s, record collector pop that samples 60s cinema, lounge, soul, and bossa nova, then rebuilds it into something chic and new. Yasuharu Konishi is the master collagist/arranger. Maki no Miya is the ultra-cool voice and attitude. Think bold colors, modernist fonts, twirl-ready hooks, music that dresses the room and owns it.
Take my place, you need me, yes you do, forever and ever.
What they made possible. That pop can be both museum smart and radio sticky. They don't hide their references, they stage them. Strings, vibraphones, spy movie guitar, cheeky spoken interludes. The ingredients are vintage, the grammar is modern. Their tracks are designed like posters. Foreground hook, negative space, A clever tagline you hum for days. Start here. Baby Love Child, 1994, for tenderness. Twiggy Twiggy, Twiggy vs. James Bond, for the wink and strut. Sweet Soul Review, when you need the confetti cannon. Then go to Made in USA, US Comp, or the 5th release from Matador for a quick primer. Then the Japanese albums for deep cuts. Production tells. Crisp drum programming close-mic'd and dry. Strings compressed for pop punch. Maki's vocal mixed forward with minimal reverb, so every smile lands. Why they stayed cult. Too stylized for rock orthodoxy. Too cosmopolitan for narrow pop lanes. Yet endlessly influential on designers, DJs, and pop maximalists. The scene. Stockholm, via Aarhus, late 90s onward. Duo Carolina Comstedt and Johan Angergaard, Labrador Records, distill Scandinavian pop to its essentials. A small drum machine, a soft guitar figure, a synth that glows rather than blinds, and a vocal that feels like someone trusting you with a secret. Their tempos are walking pace. Their choruses bloom like breath on glass. What they refined: minimalism that never feels thin. Club 8 arrange like architects of absence. Take away the cymbal, and the snare sounds closer. Remove the rhythm guitar, and the melody sounds inevitable. The trick is weightless rhythm. Songs that sway gently, but keep your head nodding. Start here. Love in December, 2001. There's a bell-tone guitar figure that acts like a second melody. The drum pattern is so restrained it becomes hypnotic. Then go to Jesus, Walk With Me for Hush and Glow Devotion. The People's Record era for when they nudge into Afro-leaning rhythms without losing the cool. Production tells. Kick and bass just touch. Tambourine appears to announce a chorus, then disappears. Carolina's vocal is close-mic, breath a deliberate part of the rhythm. Why they stayed cult? They whisper in a world that rewards shouting. Listeners who find them keep them. The scene. Lund/Stockholm, early 2000s. Johan Duncanson and Martin Karlberg build a world where hazy guitars, drum machines, and whisper-sung melodies drift like morning fog. Then you catch a lyric and realize the fog is full of barbs. It's dream pop with pamphlets in its pockets. Personal aches set against surveillance, privatization, and quiet rage. What they perfected: contradiction as texture. Airy chords and tambourine shimmer carry political lyrics that never lecture. They smuggle protest inside romance. The tempos amble, the choruses bloom late. The hooks are after images that stick once the song ends. Start here. Heaven's on Fire, 2010. A tape-recorded intro dissolves into jangly guitars and a bass line that nudges the melody forward. Then go to I Don't Like It Like This for weightless melancholy. This time around for drum machine drift. Occupied to hear the bite up close. Production tells. High-pass guitars layered in semi-tuned chorus. Snares that are more click than crack. Bass recorded round and low so the whole track feels like it's breathing. Vocals sit inside the mix, not on top, like a thought you can't shake. Why they stayed cult? Too subtle for festival fireworks playlists. Too principled to chase formats. Their records reward listeners who lean in. The scene. South London, late 80s to 1991. On Sarah Records, Bobby Ratton and company craft songs so economical they feel inevitable. Tiny drum machines, tremolo guitars, shy vocals, and then a chorus that lands like a confession you needed to hear all week. What they invented: a blueprint for indie pop restraint where negative space is part of the harmony. They moved effortlessly between jangle, early electronics, and hushed balladry without losing emotional center. Start here. Sensitive, 1989 uptempo, chiming, and quietly defiant. Then go to Emma's House for Heartache Distilled, Missing the Moon for their elegant turn toward electronics. Let's Kiss and Make Up for a melody that seems to pre-exist. Production tells. Drum machines mixed like a metronome you can love. Guitars slightly detuned for ache. Vocals tracked, dry to feel face close. When synths appear, they support rather than replace the guitar geometry. Why they stayed cult? Their intimacy resists spectacle. Put them in headphones and the world blurs to the right scale.
Way down the road, it occurs to me that I might have...
The scene. Birmingham and the English countryside, late 80s onward. Stephen Duffy. Yes, the Pre-Duran one. But this is a different book. With brother Nick Duffy writes songs that smell like rain on stone. Pastoral folk pop laced with wry observation, pedal steel, and strings that lift without syrup.
We'll face this New England like we always...
What they refined. The Sunday morning album. Not sleepy, but clear-eyed. Quietly propulsive rhythms, acoustic guitars recorded like furniture you've owned forever, and choruses that bloom in natural light. Start here. Return to Yesterday, 1988, a melody as unhurried as a walk home.
I heard a lover calling to St. Anthony.
Then go to The Lost Girl in the Midnight Sun for luminosity. American Eyes for their soft horizon. The album and Love for All for their richest arrangements. Production tells. Brushes and gently gated room mics. Lap steel used as halo rather than lead. String parts voiced to sit under vocals so the lyric holds court. The bass plays patient countermelody rather than pure root notes.
I left you at the bus stop in working town. Now
Why they stayed cult. Too subtle to compete with late 80s bombast. Too grown to be faddish. Their reward is longevity. These records age in oak, not plastic. The scene. Cork, London, mid-80s. Cathal Coghlan, voiced like a velvet thread, and Sean O'Hagan, arranger who hears in Technicolor. Build songs that glide on refined chords while the lyrics slice. Think Burt Bacharach structure with an Irish pamphleteer's pen. What they did, they smuggled satire and bile into shapely pop, lilting melodies carrying state-of-the-nation themes, media barbs, and small-town ghosts. Later, O'Hagan's trajectory toward the high Lamas arrangement luxuriance is foreshadowed in these chord choices. Start here. Town to Town, 1987, buoyant on the surface, haunted underneath. Then go to Gale Force Wind for Controlled Swells. Singer's Hampstead Home for Fangs Behind the Smile. The Clock Comes Down the Stairs for the full thesis. Production tells. Piano voicings with jazz extensions tucked into pop time. Clean guitars and stereo conversation. Strings used as architecture, not ornament. Coughlan's vocal sits forward. The message cannot hide. Why they stayed cult. Too literate to be thrown on in bars. Too pretty to be filed under angry. Their contradiction is the point and the pleasure.
the others, pleasure fills with love.
The scene. Liverpool, early 80s. Peter Coyle and Jeremy Kelly debut with a song, The First Picture of You. So perfectly bittersweet, it risked defining them. But zoom out, and you hear a band building crystalline pop, high-register guitars, nimble bass, and choruses that lift without brute force drums.
The sacred all for sales.
What they offered. The possibility of anthemic lightness, big feelings carried by delicate means. They proved you can make arms aloft music that still sounds like lace and glass. Start here. The First Picture of You, 1983, the Sun Through Cloud chorus you already know, or should. Then go to Set Me Apart for Propulsion, the album No Sense of Sin for a full palette of airy hooks. Production tells. Guitars mic bright but not harsh, synths pad in leafy shapes, snares tight and dry so nothing smears. Vocal doubles used sparingly for shimmer at choruses.
Oh, deep in some night, break into the
Why they stayed cult, a single that eclipsed deeper work, plus music industry turbulence. The catalog repays curiosity. The deeper cuts keep the promise the hit made. The Scene, Liverpool/Wirral, early mid-80s. Gary Daly and Eddie London arrive with calm voices, immaculate chord changes, and arrangements that glint like sea light. Think synths as watercolor, bass as patient counsel, and guitar figures that outline the harmony rather than dominate it.
It's just wishful thinking.
Producers like Walter Becker, Steely Dan, and Mike Howlett helped the band bottle elegance without losing warmth. What they perfected: sophisti-pop with a conscience, harmonic richness, supple grooves, and melodies you can hum for years. It's music that never raises its voice, yet stays in your head all week.
Watch the day go by.
Start here. Wishful Thinking, 1983-84. The quintessential China Crisis drift, soft drums, aching melody, weightless lift. Then go to Black Man Ray, glossier, more enigmatic, tragedy and mystery. And the album flaunt the imperfection for the Becker sheen. Production tells. Bass mixed forward and round. Drum ambience is short. Rooms, not halls. Juno/Jupiter pads carefully HPF'd so the vocal sits. Guitar arpeggios pan wide. Vocal doubles thin and tucked. Why they stayed cult. Too refined for bombastic trends. Too literate to be novelty. They reward ears that like chords with extra colors.
Eye to eye when speaking, enter rooms.
The Scene, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, late 80s forward. Karen Paris, voice/piano/guitar. Don Paris, guitar/production. And friends make songs that feel like sunlight through curtains. Intimate, reverent, and startlingly present. The lyrics are journals of ordinary holiness. Kitchen tables, sidewalks, the names of streets. Sung with a humility that knocks you sideways. What they do: microcinema, tiny details rendered with such care the world gets bigger. Harmony choices lean folk/classical. Guitar is chime and air. Rhythm is pulse, not spectacle. Start here. Bright as Yellow, 1995. Yes, the best known, but it's the doorway. Wide-eyed, buoyant, unmistakable. Then go to Tomorrow on the Runway, Lakes of Canada, and later era deep cuts where the arrangements barely rise above a whisper, yet feel vast. Production tells. Close-mic'd vocals with bare reverb, finger-picked acoustics with soft transient, pianos recorded as instrument in a room, not pop gloss. Subtle stereo guitar halos around the voice. Why they stayed cult? They don't chase volume or fashion. Listeners who find them tend to keep them for life.
Well, I'll go and hide there.
The Scene, Brisbane, Sydney, Paris, intermittently since the late 70s. Peter Milton Walsh writes like a novelist and sings like a man reading you the last page. The apartment songs are hotel room lamps at 2 a.m., strings that breathe, guitars and sleek gray chords, rhythm sections that walk rather than strut.
Be clear, not me, I act like a child.
What they carry: romance with gravity, arrangements that swell without syrup, lyrics that mean it, and melodies that arrive fully formed. If you love Scott Walker's Ache or Go-Between's elegance, this is the Hidden Corridor. Start here. The Shyest Time, 1988. Luminous, propulsive, cinematic. Then go to Sunset Hotel, All You Wanted, and the album's drift and a life full of farewells for the long, late-night arc. Production tells. Strings voiced under the vocal, not a carpet, but a conversation.
You're too young for ghosts.
Electric guitars recorded with edge minus glare. Drums lightly compressed for soft punch. Bass plays counter melody as much as root. Why they stayed cult. Sporadic releases, geography, and stubborn quality control. Every return feels necessary, never cash in.
It's 8:43. A train pulls away.
The Scene, Glasgow, 90s onward. David Scott writes the sort of tunes other songwriters quietly envy. Melodies that arc perfectly, bridges that feel inevitable, and chord changes that resolve like a smile you've been waiting for.
Oh, please buy my words for Valentine's Day.
The mood is optimistic but bittersweet. Arrangements draw from Bacharach, Beach Boys, and classic British pop without pastiche. What they offer? Craft with heart, woodwinds that actually speak, pianos that carry the harmonic load, guitars that decorate rather than demand. It's sophisticated without the wink.
I was asleep.
Start here. The Umbrellas of Shibuya, 2007. Instant classic, lyric film still images, tune that won't leave. Then go to Send Me a Letter, New Stars, and the album Up with the Larks for a suite of pure pop architecture.
The banker, the lawyer, the young Tokyo crew.
Production tells. Woodwind/brass dry and forward. You hear the reed. Stacked vocals tight and low and level. Piano mid-range carved so bass can sing. Drums lightly brushed or crisp with no splash. Why they stayed cult? Too exquisitely built for hype cycles. They feel discovered, not marketed. The Scene, Amsterdam, late 70s to now. Henk Hofstede, Rob Claude, and friends have changed shapes without losing identity. Art pop miniatures, narrative postcards, and rhythmic experiments that still hum with melody. Across decades, the Nits treat pop as applied curiosity. What happens if we put this percussion against that piano figure? If the lyric is a travel diary? If the hook is a shadow instead of a shout? What they prove? Longevity through reinvention. They never abandon song. They refresh the frame around it. In the Dutch mountains gave them a continental hit, but the deeper catalog is the reward. Rooms, cities, ghosts, and jokes, all sung with gentle intelligence. Start here. In the Dutch mountains, 1987, the door that opens most widely. Then go to JOS Days, Necio, Sketches of Spain, their own, and live takes where Rob Claude's drum language becomes the secret melody. Production tells. Drums tuned musically, not just percussively. Pianos recorded bright but woody. Guitars used as color blocks. Vocals close and conversational. Stereo field used like a stage set. Why they stayed cult? Language borders and eclecticism can confuse playlists. For listeners, that's a feature. There's always a new room to open. The journey doesn't end here, pop lovers. Watch this next.
MTV made the 80s immortal, but for every megastar, a dozen brilliant bands flickered once and vanished. Label implosions, shelved albums, one perfect single, and then radio silence. Tonight, we're digging up the ghosts, 10 forgotten 80s bands whose songs still hit like the neon just came back on. You'll get the stories behind the disappearances, and one must-hear track from each group to rebuild your playlist with the decade's best near misses. If you think you've heard every 80s classic, this list will redraw your map, because sometimes the bands that disappeared left the brightest afterimages. This is Pop Lore. Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's drop the needle on 10 forgotten 80s bands that vanished without a trace. Stick around to the end. I'm shouting out your sleeper picks for part 2. The opening synths arrive like a door sliding open on a winter night. Cold air, then warmth. Feels like. Heaven is one of the decade's great paradoxes. A chorus that soars like dawn, welded to verses that sound like they're trying not to shiver. The arrangement is immaculate in its restraint. A heartbeat drum pattern that never shows off. Bass outlining the chords in simple arcs, arpeggiated keys painting the song's perimeter, and a lead vocal that holds back just enough to make the lift feel earned. The hook isn't shouted into existence, it's revealed. A change in light more than a change in volume.
I fought the fever as I knew. My hair is...
What makes it endure is the architecture. Each layer arrives with purpose and then gets out of the way. That economy lets the lyrics do something rare in synth pop, suggest intimacy without collapsing into sentimentality. And then, the story narrows. A follow-up album that didn't connect, singles that didn't catch the same thermals, and by 1987, the band was gone. The mystery isn't why they vanished. The 80s were merciless. The mystery is how this one song keeps feeling new, as if the chorus had been waiting in the air the whole time, and Fiction Factory simply found it. Play Q. Feels like heaven.
Hey, Pop Lore family. Did you know only 1% of viewers are subscribed? If you love deep dives into pop legends, forgotten gems, and the stories behind the songs that shaped generations, hit that subscribe button right now. And don't forget to turn on LL notifications so you'll be the first to know when we premiere our next video. It's free, it helps Pop Lore grow, and it makes sure you never miss a single countdown or music story. Let's build this community together.
A guitar line like breath on glass. A bass that paces rather than pushes. Drums mixed like footsteps in a hallway. The passions build a world out of negative space, and Barbara Gogan's vocal threads through it like a thought you can't stop returning to. I'm in Love with a German Film Star is post-punk at its most painterly. Minimal parts arranged so carefully that the silence between them becomes the song's subject. The lyric is infatuation as atmosphere. Not a biography, not even a confession. More like a glow around a figure glimpsed and then lost. That's the trick. The band writes yearning into the production. Reverb isn't an effect, it's memory. The snare doesn't crack, it exhales. You hear the courage it takes to do less in a climate that rewarded drama, and the cost of that courage in a market that didn't know where to shelve quiet intensity. Within a couple of years, the passions had dissolved, leaving behind a single that keeps recruiting new listeners, one dreamy guitar line at a time. The band disappears, the feeling refuses to. Play Q. I'm in Love with a German Film Star. Some bands sound like they're building toward a future the industry hasn't scheduled yet. The Bolshoi's Away sits exactly there. Brooding verses with a pop skeleton, a vocal that carries both distance and heat, guitars that flare, then tuck back under the melody as if conserving fuel. The rhythm section locks a locomotive mid-tempo, and the chorus breaks open without ever losing shape. Goth-adjacent coloring rendered with pop discipline. Everything about Away reads like a prelude to a bigger chapter. Growing audiences, press attention, songs that could cross over without sanding off their shadows. Then the bureaucratic gravity well opens, label turbulence, a finished follow-up consigned to limbo, momentum that couldn't survive the silence. By the end of the decade, the band is gone. The lost record surfaces only decades later, a time capsule proving the spark was real. The poignancy of Away deepens once you know the trajectory. It already sounded like someone lifting their eyes to the horizon. The tragedy is we don't get to hear how far that gaze could have traveled uninterrupted. This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials. Headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe, roots and lovers. Rock made easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low-end, plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. So you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open-back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is 1 button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs, hands-free at home. Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert! If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live.
Let me in, you must be out of yesterday. Open up your arms and heart.
A baritone steps into a room lined with glass and tells you the truth. Brilliant Mind is an interior song dressed for the outside world. Elegant, poised, refracting emotion through sleek keys, and a bass line that moves with conversational calm. The drum programming is precise without being cold. Guitar comes in like a signature flourish, then vanishes.
Want your empty words heard and everybody's ready.
It's one of the decade's most haunting singles because it refuses the easy catharsis of a belt. It holds its center and lets the ache resonate. And then the machinery around it breaks. Label collapse, distribution chaos, the kind of logistical failures that can turn momentum into myth. Furniture kept writing, kept playing, but the window had narrowed while the business tried to repair its own scaffolding.
At the stage where I want my words heard and
Brilliant Mind remains as both artifact and argument, proof that understatement can be indelible, and evidence that great songs sometimes need not just craft and timing, but infrastructure to survive. When you press play now, you can still hear the alternative history humming under the chorus, the version where this voice becomes a fixture instead of a footnote.
But I'm smart enough to know.
Some ballads crash through the door. This one drifts in and rearranges the light. Todd Rundgren's production gives I Don't Mind at All an almost weightless carriage. Acoustic guitars shimmering at the edges, strings that ache without swelling, harmonies that seem to arrive a half second before you realize you needed them.
But I don't mind. No, I don't mind at all.
The melody is featherlight but exact, the lyric unhysterical and therefore devastating. It's the sound of 2 writers, Brent Bourgeois and Larry Tagg, trusting restraint, trusting that the smallest motion can move the most air. Radio programmers loved it because it refuses to date itself. There's none of the decade's technological bravado here, just pure song. But inside the band, the tectonics were shifting, creative tensions, diverging paths, and by 1989, they were finished. The single lived on, a perennial on soft focus playlists and a quiet standard for anyone trying to learn how to let the middle eight do the speaking. You don't need to know the backstory to feel the ending in the chords. The record understands that not every goodbye slams. Some of them float, smiling, all the way to the door.
The politics of movement. Oh, it's the message of the story.
It starts with a pulse you could measure a dance floor by. Kick and bass in lockstep, hi-hats etched like grid lines, synth arpeggios flickering at the edges like stage lights warming up. Then that chorus drops, half slogan, half smile, and suddenly you remember how easily a hook can reorganize a room. The politics of dancing works because it's both metaphor and mechanism, a song about the power of movement that literally powers movement. The verses are taut, the pre-chorus raises the ceiling, and the payoff is communal by design, phrasing that begs a crowd to chant it back at itself. Production-wise, it's a masterclass in 83 ergonomics. Drums with just enough gated snap to feel modern without freezing. Synths that trade glassy pads for rubbery leads. A bass line that moves like an escalator. But the real magic is restraint. Nothing grandstands. Each part is a system, clocking the dancers forward until the chant feels inevitable. And then, silence. A follow-up album trapped in release limbo. Momentum bleeding out in boardrooms instead of clubs.
The politics of dancing. The politics of...
The shocking thing isn't that one huge single didn't guarantee longevity. The 80s are littered with those. It's that a chorus this sticky didn't at least buy the band time to evolve in public. In another timeline, Politics is the opening chapter of a story about how pop and polemic learned to share a stage. In ours, it's a monument standing alone on a dance floor that kept moving without its architects. Play cue, the politics of dancing.
Take my hand, cry boy cry, the tears.
Everything glows. Marimba flecks sparkle at the edges. The bass line bounces like colored light. The drums feel sprung rather than slammed. Cry Boy Cry is pure neon, a track engineered to ricochet off roller rink ceilings and radio antennas with equal ease. The vocal rides the top line with arch poise, angling from pout to plea without losing a wink. The chorus blooms on contact, the kind you remember as a shape even before you recall the words.
Close the vacuum, watch it try.
Listen to how the percussion frames the hook. The marimba not as novelty but as architecture, brightening the downbeat and turning the turnarounds into little fireworks. Guitars stroke, never slash. Synths add lift, never wait. It's one of those records where the arrangement does what the lyric can't quite say. It levitates. And yet by 1985, Blue Zoo had split. One big flare, then darkness, with reunion flickers decades later proving the DNA still jolts a crowd. You can feel the tragedy of timing here. A sound perfectly aligned with early 80s pop theater, released into a market that would soon demand either more gloss or more grit. Cry Boy Cry lives on because it picked a third path, buoyant, and turned it into a memory you can still dance to. Chiming guitars draw a horizon line. The bass steps patiently into it, and the drums mark time with unfussy precision. A Million Things builds melancholy like an architect, pain by pain, until the light coming through feels colored. The chorus doesn't explode so much as lift, a widening of the frame where melody and longing arrive at the same height. College radio programmers heard it instantly. This was a song you could live inside. What makes it durable is proportion. The Lucy Show balance jangle and weight. giving the verses enough shadow that the refrain can glow without schmaltz. Guitars interlock rather than compete. Backing vocals act like scaffolding, not wallpaper. It's the sound of a band that knows how to rise without overreaching. Then the floor drops out where the music industry meets finance. Label instability, a bankruptcy looming like weather, plans put on hold until on hold becomes over. By '88, they were gone, leaving behind records that play like postcards from an alternate chart history. Spin a million things now, and you can still hear the route it should have taken, straight up the middle of playlists that never got to be. Punk kids recalibrate. The guitars get glossy, the rhythm section learns widescreen stride, and China strides out like a mission statement. This is the sound of a band turning toward radio horizon without losing the urgency that got them out of garages. Verse melodies are taut and conversational. The pre-chorus tilts forward. The chorus throws the windows open. MTV bites. And for a minute, the future looks big. The production is textbook 83 in the best way. Chorus guitar swimming just shy of excess. Drums crisp without calcifying. A synth sheen that contours rather than smothers. You can hear the discipline of a group learning to land ideas at the hook without sanding off their edges. It's not a sellout, it's a swerve. And for one single, the lane holds. But stylistic pivots are bargains with the gods of timing, and the bill can come due fast. By the mid-'80s, the spark had faded, internal and external pressures doing what they do, and Red Rockers folded, returning much later for one-offs that function more like gatherings than campaigns. China remains as the proof of concept, a lesson in how to translate without betraying, and a reminder that one translation isn't always enough to earn permanent citizenship on the charts.
Hey, Pop Lore family! Did you know only 1% of viewers are subscribed? If you love deep dives into pop legends, forgotten gems, and the stories behind the songs that shaped generations, hit that subscribe button right now. And don't forget to turn on LL notifications so you'll be the first to know when we premiere our next video. It's free, it helps Pop Lore grow, and it makes sure you never miss a single countdown or music story. Let's build this community together.
Some songs don't meet you in the nightclub. They meet you by the window. Thank You moves with Baccarat-tinted grace. Trumpet lines that feel like late afternoon light. Acoustic guitar filigree tracing the edges. Rhythm parts that sway rather than insist. The melody doesn't climb so much as float. And the lyric's gratitude is disarming precisely because it refuses melodrama. This is Liverpool not as grit but as poise, a lineage of pop that remembers how to dress well and feel deeply at the same time. What's remarkable is how modern it still sounds when you strip the decade's markers away. The arrangement is air and proportion. The recording lets instruments breathe in a shared space. The vocal sites close enough to feel conversational. Critics heard it, adored it. Charts shrugged. By 1987, the Pale Fountains had split, with members carrying their sensibility into Shack, another cult beloved for craftsmanship the market too rarely rewards. Play Thank You for a Friend, and you'll watch the conversion happen in real time. The head tilt, the slight smile when the horn line returns, the unprompted, "Who is this?" That's the secret life of a vanished band. To survive as a gift, passed hand to hand, turning strangers into caretakers. Play Q, Thank You. The journey doesn't end here, pop lovers. Watch this next. What if the soundtrack of the 70s wasn't just bell-bottoms and glitter, but bans, boycotts, and broadcast panic? Tonight, we're dropping the needle on the decade's most explosive singles, the songs that got pulled off playlists, protested in the streets, and whispered about on late-night radio, and still climbed the charts anyway. From punk sneers that crashed the Queen's party, to disco whispers the BBC wouldn't touch. From gender-bending anthems slipped past censors to ballads so suggestive they sparked hotline complaints. Each record on this list didn't just make noise. It moved the goalpost for what pop could say out loud. If you've ever sung along without knowing why the station almost didn't play it, you're in the right place. Count it down with me. 10 controversial 70s songs that rewired radio and why they still light a fuse today. London, June 1977. Union Jacks hang from every shop front for the Silver Jubilee. In a rehearsal room at Wessex Studios, a different banner is being stitched together. Power chords, spit, and a chorus meant to be yelled from the top deck of a bus. Producer Chris Thomas and engineer Bill Price are trying to bottle a riot. The Pistols want it ugly but huge. Thomas wants it loud enough to jump a stylus out of a cheap dancette. The compromise is history. A wall of Steve Jones guitars, double-tracked until 2 chords feel like a battering ram, and Paul Cook's snare like a starter pistol. The single's sleeve, Jamie Reed's ransom note typography across a defaced royal portrait, arrives like contraband. The band has already torched bridges, dropped by EMI, briefly signed then sacked by A&M after a notorious champagne-smashed visit to the label. Virgin takes the bet. Timing does the rest. A few weeks before the Jubilee Flotilla, the Pistols charter their own boat, blasting the single down the Thames until police bring the party to shore. The BBC refuses airplay. Some chain shops won't stock it. Chart compilers are accused of massaging numbers. Officially, it peaks at number 2. Punk folklore swears it was the number 1 that couldn't be allowed. Under the headlines is a record designed to make Middle Britain flinch and the disaffected grin. John Lydon drags syllables just behind the beat, sarcasm as rhythm, while Glenn Matlock's bass, still echoing through the arrangement despite Sid Vicious's later myth, locks the song to the pavement. The lyric, "There is no future," is either nihilism or a job center bulletin, depending on your postcode. Either way, yelling it together turned private frustration into public theater. The censors tried to smother it. The band minted its legend. More than a provocation, God Save the Queen taught a generation that absence of airplay could become the loudest advertising of all. Munich After Dark. In Musicland Studios, producer Giorgio Moroder and co-writer Pete Bellotte are building something that moves like breath. The original demo, short, coy, sounds promising. Then Neil Bogart of Casablanca Records hears it at a party in Los Angeles and gives the note that changes dance music. Longer, not 5 minutes, 17. The 12-inch becomes a cathedral, the groove an altar. Moroder's bass slides like warm rubber. Hi-hats whisper. Strings trace the outline of a silhouette you only half see. Donna Summer, a session pro who can belt, doesn't. She sings from closer in, mic brushing the edge of confidence and confession. Engineers ride reverb the way a cinematographer rides light. Intimate for the size, expansive when the track blooms. The result is a slow burn suite that maps desire in real time. Time magazine will claim to count 22 orgasms. The BBC will reach for the off switch, and late night TV moralists will do what moralists do. But on a packed floor in 1975, it reads as another kind of news. Women's pleasure had found a backbeat, and it sold.
Oh, love to love you, baby.
Behind the scenes, Moroder is also sketching a production future. The 12-inch as narrative form. Instead of a radio-ready verse, chorus economy, tiny events keep you. A fresh string response, a new background moan, a subtle filter move on the bass. The trance is never lazy, it's incremental storytelling. For DJs, the length is a tool. For listeners, a permission slip. The bands and bleeped segments couldn't compete with the truth the record put in the room. If the groove is honest, the body knows before the committee does. Muscle Shoals Sound Studio, Alabama, December 1969. The Rolling Stones are on American soil recording the first cut of a new decade. Jimmy Johnson is behind the board. Bobby Keys has his tenor sax warmed. In the live room, Keith Richards picks up a 5-string open G Telecaster and drops a riff that sounds like a door kicked off its hinges. The band runs it down fast. The keeper take is raw, hot, and impossible to refuse. But Brown Sugar isn't only a riff. The lyric carries images, slavery, coercion, power dynamics that would shadow the song for decades. In 1971, rock radio hears the swagger first. In later years, with different ears and a different conversation, the text won't sit so easily. The Stones themselves begin to retreat the song from set lists, most notably in 2021. An unspoken concession that the world has changed around it. On tape, though, you hear why it became inescapable. Charlie Watts places the backbeat like a hinge. Mick Taylor threads filigree lines through Richards' engine. Bobby Keys punctuates choruses with brass that sounds like a second riff. Mick Jagger slides words into feel, smearing consonants so meaning dissolves into motion. It's rock's sleight of hand. A dance-proof arrangement carrying a story many would rather not look at. If Love to Love You Baby forced radio to face female desire, Brown Sugar eventually forced audiences to face the cost of singing along without reading the fine print. It starts as a story, with a grin. Ray Davies writes Lola after a night out in a London club, a wry, affectionate narrative about meeting someone who isn't what his narrator expects, and discovering it doesn't matter. The recording at Morgan Studios in Willesden has everything the Kinks do best. Acoustic strum pushing the song forward, John Dalton's melodic bass answering the vocal, and that chorus, L-O-L-A, spelling itself into memory.
Why she walk like a woman, talk like a man.
And then a problem that isn't the one you think. The BBC isn't offended by the gender twist. It's offended by Coca-Cola. Brand mentions violate broadcast rules. Davies is on tour in the US when he gets the call. He famously flies back across the Atlantic to re-sing one word, Cherry Cola. With that, the gates open. The subversion slips onto Tea Time Radio not by disguising itself, but by sounding welcoming. There's no leer, no panic, just a story sung with warmth. The little-known detail here is how much craft protects the song's heart. The band tracks it like a pub sing-along, but the arrangement is a gentle sleight of hand. Dynamics lift on every pre-chorus, harmony voices enter like old friends, and the resonator guitar adds a bright, metallic wink. It's not a lecture, it's hospitality. Where controversy elsewhere in the decade shouted, Lola smiles, and smiles can change more minds than shouts. The result is a hit that let millions rehearse tolerance out loud without being told they were doing homework. Trident Studios, London. Producer David Bowie and arranger Mick Ronson are helping Lou Reed make a record that will be both quiet and seismic. Reed has the verses, portraits from Andy Warhol's factory, Holly Woodlawn, Candy Darling, Little Joe, Sugar Plum Fairy, Jackie Curtis. He doesn't need to dramatize them, he just needs to say their names and let the music carry them.
Babe, take a walk on the wild side. Said, hey, babe, take...
Session legend. Herbie Flowers comes up with a trick. Track two basses, a Fender Jazz and a double bass, with one line sliding into the other. A sly, knowing glissando that turns the groove into a cushion. Flowers will later laugh about being paid a flat $17 for a line that may be the most famous of his career. Ronson colors around the edges and brings in Ronnie Ross for the baritone sax solo. Ross, coincidentally, taught a young David Bowie sax years earlier.
Joe, never once gave it away. Everybody had to.
The take feels like late-night radio. The do-do-do refrain, a hand on your shoulder, between verses that, in 1972, almost no mainstream broadcaster wanted to touch. Some stations cut lines, some refuse it altogether, but the song walks where bands can't follow, charting anyway. For people who heard themselves in it, Reed's tone, cool, unhurried, unsensational, was oxygen.
Went to the Apollo, you should have seen him go.
For people who didn't, the record functioned as education by melody. You could hum the chorus before you realized what you had just learned. That sleight of hand is the secret. Understatement as radicalism. Transformer would make Reed a star. Walk on the Wild Side made room on radio for lives that previously only existed in whispers. This video is sponsored by the Lore Store on Amazon, your one-stop shop for music lovers across reggae, rock, pop, and hip-hop. We built it for real listeners who don't want to dig through 1,000 listings to find the right gear. Inside the Lore Store, you'll find 5 aisles. VIP, top, battle-tested essentials. Headphones, turntables, speakers, gig-safe earplugs, smart speakers. Reggae vibe, roots and lovers. Rock made easy, automatic decks, warm bookshelf speakers, vinyl care. Rock lore, classic rock must-haves, open back cans, simple amps, living room concert vibes. Pop lore, feel-good everyday setups, clean, clear speakers, easy streaming, nostalgia-friendly picks. Hip-hop must-haves, punchy bass without the muddle, closed-back headphones and living room systems that handle low-end, plus a rotating crate of old album vinyl if you're rebuilding a 60s-90s collection. Every product page tells you who it's for, 3 pros, 1 con, and why we picked it. So you can choose with confidence. Flying soon? Check. VIP for noise canceling that tames plane roar. Mostly listening at home? Try open-back headphones that let live albums breathe. Want instant gratification vinyl? Our fully automatic turntable is 1 button from silence to music, and the record cleaning kit knocks down crackle so the bass tightens up. Headed to shows? Grab high-fidelity earplugs, hands-free at home. Our smart speaker picks let you say, play 70s reggae or classic pop, and you're there. Deal alert. If you use the link in the description, you'll land on our curated picks with current best available Amazon pricing and active discounts where applicable. Prices change, so buy now to lock in today's deal. Tap the link in the description, pick your aisle, grab a favorite, and tell me which category you want me to build next. The Lore Store. Listen better, with gear that gets out of the way and lets the music live. A seaside town at closing time. Crawley, 1978. 3 teenagers calling themselves Easy Cure are workshopping songs in a church hall that smells faintly of tea and dust. Robert Smith has been reading Albert Camus' The Stranger, underlining sentences about sunlight and moral ambiguity. Out of those margins comes a lyric written in the first person, deliberately pared back, deliberately thorny. The band tightens the music into an economical 2 minutes. Tom-tom accents, a surfy single-coil guitar line, a bass part that paces rather than struts. It's eerie, weightless, a postcard from a book. When Small Wonder Records issues Killing an Arab in late 1978, it's on a tiny pressing that travels faster than anyone expects. On radio cue sheets, the title jumps off the page and context falls away. The Cure explain, again and again, that it's a literary reference, a slice of Camus' existential plot, not a call to violence. Some programmers listen, some don't. Protests follow. Years later, the band adds disclaimers on sleeves, sidesteps the title on air, occasionally substitutes Killing Another Live, and releases alternate art that foregrounds the Camus source. Behind the scenes, the musicianship is almost ascetic. Robert Smith keeps the guitar dry and trebly. No chorus pedal yet, just that Morricone meets kitchen tile tone. Lol Tolhurst's drums move like measured footsteps. Michael Dempsey's bass walks the perimeter of the melody. It is, in its bones, a study in restraint, how little you can play and still make a room lean in. The controversy arrived because a jukebox can't footnote. The record endures because the ambiguity is the point. A narrative sung by an unreliable narrator, an ethical riddle set to a danceable shiver.
Always get it up for the touch of the younger kind.
Sun-baked Los Angeles, MCA Whitney Studios, 1979. Producer Mike Chapman is running a tight ship. Fast takes, minimal fuss, no time for vanity overdubs. Burton Aver brings a riff he's been carrying around since high school, a stuttering up-down figure that sounds like a sprint-starting pistol. Doug Feger has a new muse, Sharona Alperin, a teenage shop assistant he met and can't stop thinking about.
Running down the length of my thighs, Sharona, but don't stop, give it up.
He writes frantically. Whole diaries of lyrics spill out. In the live room, everything clicks in one kinetic take. Hand claps like a pep rally, Tom fills that skid into the chorus. Guitar and bass gnawing at the same bone. The song detonates. 8 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. A debut album tracked in less than 2 weeks suddenly moves like a blockbuster. But the backstory doesn't age gently. Feger was 25, Sharona was 17. In 1979, pop is loose with boundaries. Later decades read the lyrics and the gaze with different eyes. Alperin herself becomes part of the myth, appearing on single sleeves, in photo shoots, forever tied to a chorus that the entire planet can sing from the first 2 syllables. Listen closely to the engineering choices that made it indelible. Chapman and the room mic the kit so that the snare is dry and in your face. The guitars aren't thickened into oblivion. Each pick scrape is audible punctuation. The vocal sits unvarnished, no safety varnish of reverb, just breath, grin, and momentum. The cultural arc is the decades in miniature, desire turbocharged into popcraft, then interrogated by time. Whatever your verdict on the story, the record's mechanics remain a masterclass in power pop physics, how to turn a 4-chord motor and a syllable stutter into a global reflex. A New York office where the blinds are half closed to the afternoon. Producer Jacques Morali is grinning. Henri Belolo is juggling business lines. Victor Willis is taking a melody and sharpening it into a chant that you can't exorcise once it's in. The concept is already vivid. Characters as costumes, disco as theater. But the engine isn't just camp, it's craft. A 4-on-the-floor thump marble polished for radio, brass punches that feel like confetti cannons, a bass line that bounces while staying glued to the kick. Released at the end of 1978, YMCA is instantly 2 songs at once. On the surface, a squeaky clean invitation to get yourself clean, have a good meal. Just beneath, a wink toward queer social space, community coded and not so coded. The Young Men's Christian Association bristles publicly, press statements, trademark talk, then later softens as the song raises their profile worldwide. In the background, authorship disputes simmer for decades, cresting in court cases where Victor Willis reasserts his rights and wins major ground in the 2010s. What most listeners don't know is how architected the hook is. That, "It's fun to stay at the" line climbs exactly the distance your hand wants to climb when you throw the YMCA shapes. It's choreography embedded in melody, participation engineered in the writing. Culture wars rage, weddings book the DJ anyway. The song becomes less a track than a public ritual, imported into stadium timeouts and parade floats, while debates about meaning continue in comment columns. The genius and the controversy lie in the double exposure, a single that lets you pick your register and shouts neither down.
And sit right down, loosen up that.
Muscle Shoals taught him patience, Atlantic Crossing taught him polish. By 1976, Rod Stewart is walking a line between pub confessional and silk sheet radio. Tonight's the Night is the moment he leans into the whisper. The arrangement is hushed. A Fender Rhodes that sounds like a lamp turned low. Brushed drums, a slide guitar sigh. Stewart undersings with a rasp like corduroy.
Don't deny your man's desire. You'd be
Everything begs you to lean closer. The BBC leans away. A single line, "Let me come inside," is enough to send the song to the naughty step. Some US stations splice or soften. And then there's the voice in French, uncredited at first. Britt Eklund, Stewart's then partner, murmuring as if she's right at your ear. Scandal or just good radio? For the public, the answer splits by postcode and by hour of the day.
nobody gonna stop us now.
For the charts, it's simpler. The record spends 8 weeks at #1 in the US, a slow exhale at the top of the decade's most crowded year. Behind the console, the magic is negative space. Producer Tom Dowd knew how to carve a pocket so a murmur felt like a secret.
Don't say a word, my virgin.
The bass is mixed like a heartbeat, steady but never attention-seeking. The drums sit back, as if anything louder would break the spell. It's the 1970s distilled, radio discovering that intimacy could be scandalous and profitable, artists learning that suggestion travels further than declaration. For some, it was too much. For others, not enough. For record stores, it was both, and it moved units.
Or die for. And no religion.
A white room at Tittenhurst Park. John Lennon sits at a Steinway upright. There's a blanket over the strings to dull the attack. A mic positioned so close you can hear the hammer-felt sigh like breath. Phil Spector is in the control room, glasses pushed up, drawing a slow halo of reverb around the piano.
The people living life.
Yoko Ono is in the house, the spiritual co-author in all but credit. Ideas sifted from her grapefruit instruction pieces, the notion of stripping away ownership, border, and creed until what's left is us. Decades later, the industry will finally acknowledge her co-writing. Lennon had said publicly that her name belonged on it. The verses arrive as plain language, not slogans. Imagine there's no heaven, no rhyme scheme pyrotechnics, no chorus that demands your diaphragm.
Possession. I wonder if
The architecture is hymnal, IVV with the windows flung open. The strings, scored to hover, not weep, enter like fog on a field. Lennon sings without armor, double-tracked but unadorned, the burr of his Liverpool vowels still there, softening the sermon into a bedside conversation. The world's response splits and keeps splitting. In the US, it climbs to number 3. In the UK, released as a single only in 1975, it settles into the national bloodstream by a different route.
but I'm not the only one.
It becomes the song you hear when the cameras cut to candles, charity telethons, memorial vigils, world-changing funerals. And in other moments, it's the song some stations refuse. Too political, too secular, too everything for classrooms or state broadcasts. During wars and after attacks, some programmers shelve it as if hope itself might be inflammatory. The little-known studio detail is how close it came to being smothered in grandeur.
But I'm not the only one.
Lennon and Spector could have poured on choirs and timpani. They didn't. The power is the emptiness. A piano you could plausibly play at home, a melody anyone can own, and a lyric that asks rather than orders. The controversy is the lyric's audacity. No countries, no religion. But the genius is how it refuses to sneer while saying so. Imagine remains a proof of concept that a pop song can be a prayer and a provocation, and that which side you hear depends on where you're standing when it finds you. The journey doesn't end here, pop lovers. Watch the
Whole school? One CD single, one poster in the shop window, one choreographed performance on a Saturday TV show, and suddenly a new name was everywhere. Then, just as quickly gone. The 1990s minted 1,000 pop dreams and chewed through most of them. Labels rose and folded, teen pop model, and a lot of genuinely great groups slipped straight through the cracks. This episode is for the bands you taped off the radio and then lost in the shuffle. The ones who had a moment, a monster hook, maybe even a top 10, and then vanished from the mainstream's memory. We'll rewind the decade the way it actually felt. Glossy videos on heavy rotation, Max Martin choruses sharing airtime with swing beat and Britpop, and A&R gambles that could change everything or end a career overnight. We'll talk about why some acts disappeared, label mergers, radio format swings, mistimed US pushes, why some walked away by choice, and why a few are overdue for a second listen. Ground rules: no household names, no nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. One group, one signature track that still slaps, a quick origin story, what went right, what went sideways, and where to start if you're building a playlist today. Think of this as a time capsule you can dance to. If you were there, prepare for synth memories, jewel cases that cracked, magazine pullouts on bedroom walls, TV premieres you rushed home to catch. If you weren't, you're about to hear how wild and wide the 90s pop ecosystem really was. Let's press play and count down 15 forgotten 90s pop bands that vanished without a trace, starting at 15 to 11, then 10 to 6, and finally the top 5 you won't believe you forgot. Before they were a pop poster on every bedroom wall, the Moffat brothers, Scott, and the triplets Bob, Clint, and Dave spent the early 90s as country kids signed to a major, touring and cutting records with frightening professionalism for their age. The pivot came in 1998 with Chapter 1, a new beginning, a pop rock rebirth that put them in the same TRL/radio Disney slipstream as Hanson, but with a slightly grittier band feel and four-part harmonies that could carry a chorus without studio scaffolding. By 2000, they leaned rockier on submodalities, produced by Bob Rock, landing a #1 at home with Bang Bang Boom, before splitting in 2001, casualties of label realignments and a market about to be upended by file sharing.
You're all that I need.
Years later, reunions proved the fan base never really left. Start Here, I'll Be There For You for the radio-ready lift, then Miss You Like Crazy for the pure 1998 time capsule. They moved from their first album Keep On, 1997, to a second, self-titled set on Maverick in 2000, scoring their most enduring earworm with Can I Get Your Number, A Girl Like You, a hook built for MTV spring breaks and mall speakers. In the major label shuffle of the era, the group splintered by 2001, but their short run captures the precise moment teen pop, R&B swing, and TRL aesthetics collided on American radio. Start Here, Can I Get Your Number, 2000, for peak era polish, then rewind to Don't Stop to hear Darkchild stamp.
You broke this heart of mine, my love in somebody's heart, and I gave you
In the UK's boy band boom, Code Red staked out the harmony lane, closer to a refined vocal group than a choreography-first outfit. Discovered by producer Nicky Graham and signed to Polydor, they nearly represented the UK at Eurovision's national pre-finals with I Gave You Everything, runner-up in the 1996 Great British Song Contest, then issued the album Scarlet, 1997, with mid-chart UK singles and surprising success across Southeast Asia. It's the kind of career arc the 1990s created routinely: domestic near misses, international pockets of devoted fans, and a catalog that rewards anyone who still loves modulations and stacked bridges. Start Here, I Gave You Everything for their cleanest showcase of blend and key change drama. Cleo, Yona, and Zynam Higgins arrived like a bolt of color in 1998. Manchester Street style, TLC-era attitude, and Motown Kid tightness. Debut single Cleopatra's Theme stormed to UK number 3. Then, after Madonna's Maverick label brought them stateside, reached US number 26, a rare feat for a brand new UK R&B/pop act. The Comin' At Ya era felt everywhere for a minute. TRL spins, Disney Channel specials, and a sound that could pivot from bubblegum to new jack polish. As teen pop tides shifted and labels consolidated, momentum cooled, sporadic reunions followed. But the singles still glow with Y2K neon. Start Here, Cleopatra's Theme. You'll remember the hook by Bar 2. Formed in 1998 by Simon Cowell to challenge the Spice Girls head-on, Girl Thing had everything you'd script for a number one. A massive campaign, Eiffel Tower promo spectacle, and a debut single, Last One Standing, primed for the top. It peaked at UK number 8, a solid hit that read as a disappointment given the hype. Follow-up Girls on Top stalled. The UK album was shelved, released overseas, and by 2001 the project was over. An object lesson in how expectation management can make a respectable chart week feel like failure. A reunion for the big reunion in 2014 briefly reopened the case file. The singles still bang. Start Here, Last One Standing, for a pristine slice of Steelworks built, turn of the millennium pop. Why these five matter in a 90s pop story. Together they map the decades' incentives and trapdoors. Precocious talent machinery, the Moffats, superstar-backed label bets, no authority, old-school vocal craft trying to survive a dance-first market, Code Red. The rare UK-US crossover for a brand-new girl group, Cleopatra, and the publicity bubble that burst on contact with reality, Girl Thing. Different rooms, same stakes. Hooks, timing, and the mercy of the release schedule. Want the next chapter? 10-6, in the same deep dive tone, plus a pinned comment template to drive viewer suggestions for a community playlist? If you want to hear the exact moment late 90s Europop locked into radio perfection, start with Solid Harmony. They were a UK/US girl group who trained in Orlando's boy band ecosystem, then cut singles at Stockholm's Cheiron Complex. Max Martin and Christian London at the Faders, those close-mic'd vocals sitting on top of glassy synths and piston-tight drums. I Want You to Want Me isn't a cheap trick cover. It's a purpose-built bullet from 1998, co-written and produced by Martin/London, and it moved across Europe with top 10-20 peaks in multiple territories and a UK top 20 bow under jive. Their self-titled album, 1998, is the full Cheiron playbook, stacked hooks, key change architecture, and that airless drum programming that makes everything feel bigger than the room. It went top 5 in Finland and number 2 in the Netherlands. Proof that the Max Martin aesthetic wasn't just an American story. Where to start? I Want You to Want Me for the Cheiron signature. Then, I'll Be There for You to hear how they soft-pedaled the same machinery into mid-tempo glow. Norway's The Tuesdays did what most European pop rock acts of the era couldn't. They punched into US Top 40 on Craft alone. It's Up to You, 1998, is chiming guitars, breathy lead, and a chorus that opens like a window, produced by Ole Evenrud and pushed by Polydor/Arista. It hit number 55 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 23 on Mainstream Top 40, with heavy spins at WPLJ and Keys. Back home, it reached number 11. That's a serious footprint for a new, non-boy band act with no prefab franchise behind them. Their second, self-titled album is a time capsule of late 90s radio rock, half sunlit, half melancholy, and it answers the classic, what if the Bangles met Scandinavian pop discipline? Question without pastiche. The US follow-up stalled when Arista passed on the next record, and the band split soon after. Where to start? It's up to you, single mix. Then, I'll be here for the tug between Sparkle and Ache. Years before Pop Stars or X Factor, Upside Down were assembled on camera for a BBC Inside Story documentary. 4 lads, 1 indie label, world records, all chips on the table.
You're the one I've never known. Didn't say the word.
The gambit worked. Their debut, Change Your Mind, leapt into the UK Top 20, peaking at number 11, and they racked up 4 UK hits in 1996 before the label collapsed, taking the campaign with it. The sound is classic mid-90s Brit-pop boy band. Bright synth pads, octave bass, and choruses written like Terrace chants.
We can leave it all behind now. Tell me, can I make a change?
But the meta-story is the lesson. Publicity can light the fuse. Infrastructure keeps the rocket in the air. When World Records went under, the group rebranded Orange Orange and faded. Member Giles Christian later became a best-selling historical novelist, a footnote that underlines how brief and intense those chart years were. Where to start? Change Your Mind. Top of the Pop's performance exists. Then, Every Time I Fall in Love, to hear the template executed with more finesse. Ireland's OTT were built for export. 5 clean harmonies, a knack for melodic covers, and production from UK hitmakers Steve Mack, Phil Harding, Ian Curnow. Their 1997 album This One's For You set the table and a run of Irish top 10s, including Let Me In, IRE number 2. Prove the model. The UK paid attention on the second go, All Out of Love, yes, the Air Supply song, hit UK number 11, and the reissued Let Me In reached UK number 12. What you hear is the pivot between early 90s balladeering and late 90s Max-era punch, lush BVs, polite swing in the drum programming, and key changes that land like fireworks. Sony's late 90s shakeups left them without a lane, and the band dissolved. In hindsight, the singles stand up as impeccably sung snapshots of the Irish pop boom Walsh helped mainstream. Where to start? Let Me In, 1997 reissue, for the full-throated chorus. Then The Story of Love for original song proof they weren't just a covers machine.
You can't believe what I'm saying. There's more to this world.
Formed by producer Ian Levine and signed to A&M, Bad Boys Inc. were a flash of pure mid-90s UK pop glamour. Sharp tailoring, airtight harmonies, tracks designed for smash hits covers, and HMV signings.
I'm looking out for danger.
The numbers are real. More to This World peaked at UK number 8. Take Me Away, I'll Follow You, at number 15, and the self-titled album reached UK number 13 before the project wrapped in 1995. Sonically, think high-gloss synth bass, hushed verses that explode into ecstatic choruses, and radio edits that waste 0 seconds.
I want all you got to give to me. There's got to be more. Need to turn back now. You can tell me the deal.
It's the sound of a domestic pop machine working at full efficiency until the next trend blows through. They didn't change the culture, they nailed their moment, which is what great singles are for. Where to start? More to this world for the peak. Then, walking on air, to hear how they packaged Euphoria in 3 minutes. The common thread is infrastructure. Labels, producers, and broadcast slots either amplified the hook or let it fall through the cracks. When you're ready, we'll wrap with 5-1. The short runs, the misfires, and the singles that still level a room.
Remember when we used to talk all night?
In a year drenched in TRL gloss, for young women walked on stage with actual instruments and a breezy pop rock single that cut through the noise. Thunderbugs' Friends Forever arrived in September 1999 and shot straight to number 5 in the UK, buoyed by that fizzy chorus and a radio-ready guitar jangle that nodded to Go-Go's energy more than Spice-era choreography. Their hook ended up on the center stage soundtrack, which should have been a springboard. Instead, the follow-up, It's About Time You Were Mine, stalled outside the top 40 and the momentum evaporated. The album Delicious, already in motion, was quietly shuffled out on mini-disc in the UK and on CD in Europe in 2000. The sound of a promising lane change the market didn't give time to breathe. Why They Matter. They were a proof of concept for instrument-playing girl groups at the tail end of the 90s teen pop wave, closer in spirit to later acts who wanted songs and chops, not just choreography. If you want the capsule of that promise, Friends Forever is still there, gleaming. Start here, Friends Forever, then sample the shelved then issued Delicious to hear the sound they were actually building toward.
I'm telling you now, I quit.
Hepburn looked like a label meeting between Cheryl Core guitars and UK teen pop sparkle, and, for a second, it worked spectacularly. Debut single I Quit landed at UK number 8 in May 1999, and, crucially, lived a second life when it turned up on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The album, the most 1999 way possible to stamp a moody smart, alt-TV seal on your breakout.
Ain't gonna go to work no more. Ain't gonna go to work.
Follow-ups, Bugs, and Deep Deep Down kept them on radio, but internal changes and market churn saw the band fold after one album. What remains is a tidy snapshot of where UK pop rock was trying to go: brusque guitars, confessional choruses, and a TV sync savvy that came just before that strategy became standard.
I quit, 'cause loving you's a job I do.
Why They Matter. Hepburn made the case that guitar pop with big choruses could sneak on a teen playlist without sacrificing bite. The Buffy association wasn't just marketing. It's a perfect cultural time capsule of how TV planted pop in kids' rooms. Start here, I Quit, then dive into the Buffy compilation to hear how it sat in that ecosystem. Long before UK R&B had its mid-2000s renaissance, MN8 were already taking new jack swing across Europe. Their debut, I've Got a Little Something For You, didn't just explode. It parked at UK number 2 and ricocheted into top 10s around the world. Just as importantly, it jumped mediums onto the 1995 Bad Boys soundtrack, which immortalized that rubber band bass line and made the track a 90s artifact you could practically see. The run that followed, If You Only Let Me In, Happy, Baby It's You, proved they were more than a one single story. To the next level collected those hooks into a smart, polished set that still swings. Why They Matter. MN8 mapped a lane in which UK R&B could be unabashedly pop without losing club credibility. The records are crisp, the vocals interlock like machinery, and the grooves feel engineered for radio and dance floors at once. Start here, I've Got a Little Something For You, then run the single straight through. There's a reason they kept charting. Crazy for You is one of those songs that feels like it's always been there, because, for a summer, it was everywhere. Let Loose released it to a shrug in 1993. A year later, the reissue vaulted to UK number 2 and Refused to Leave, becoming the 8th best-selling UK single of 1994. Rather than chase that moment with carbon copies, the trio leaned into guitar pop with Melodic Muscle, 17, number 11, Kept the Momentum, One Night Stand hit number 12, and Best in Me gave them a second top 10. The debut album reached the UK top 20, a tidy run that played like a greatest hits set in real time. Why They Matter. They bridged boy band accessibility with bona fide songwriting. Choruses built to last, guitars up front, and just enough grit to keep it from dissolving into syrup. In a Just World, they're filed next to Del Amitri and B.B. Mac as 90s UK pop rock craftsmen. Start Here, Crazy for You, then Best in Me for the soft focus classic they'll be remembered for. There's a reason New Radicals sit at the top of this shouldn't be underrated pile. They're simultaneously ubiquitous and misunderstood. You Get What You Give is the rare late 90s anthem that has grown in stature, charting modestly in the US, but going top 5 in the UK and number 1 in Canada and New Zealand. A perfect storm of uplift, snark, and evergreen melody. Then, in July 1999, Greg Alexander disbanded the project by press release before the second single's push, citing the grind of touring and promo and a desire to write and produce for others. What looked like self-sabotage at the time reads, in hindsight, like an artist choosing the studio over the circus. Co-wrote Ronan Keating's UK number 1 Life is a roller coaster. Co-wrote and produced Sophie Ellis-Bextor's Murder on the Dance Floor, which roared back into the charts in 2024, and co-wrote Santana and Michelle Branch's Grammy-winning The Game of Love. In 2021, New Radicals briefly reunited to perform You Get What You Give for the US presidential inauguration, proof the song had become something bigger than its chart peak, an intergenerational comfort tune with bite. And the receipts since? Alexander. Why They Matter. The band's discography is slim, but its DNA runs everywhere. Into pop, into film, Alexander's Begin Again songs, into the way modern hits balance sincerity and side-eye. They didn't fade. They scattered their influence through other people's smashes. Start Here, You Get What You Give. Then jump to Someday We'll Know for the bittersweet counterpoint, and follow Alexander's trail to Life is a Roller Coaster and Murder on the Dance Floor. The journey doesn't end here, pop lovers. Watch this next.